Welcome to the Hoof and Fang podcast. I'm Kirt Maz.
And I'm Maz Maddox.
How was your week?
It's going. It's trucking along.
Mm-hmm. I hear things happening in there.
Yeah, a lot of meetings today.
Yeah.
So I just jumped off of one and sprinted over here and got ready. So, trying to switch gears.
All 6 feet.
All 6 feet, yeah. It was a fast run, but...
Metaphorically sprinting.
Yeah.
Perhaps.
Yeah, I sprinted in my mind. I don't know.
Okay.
Sure.
How is being an author? Is that happening?
Yeah. So that's actually going great. I finally got to actually put words down on Wild Contracts 3 manuscript over the weekend.
Amazing.
Yeah. So it's no longer just in draft mode where I'm trying to figure out what the hell I'm doing. I'm actually putting words into chapter 1. So it's a great feeling. So yeah, I'm so happy because it was one of those, every time I start a new project and it's that blank first page, it's the worst because I always want to nail it immediately, which is impossible. It's a rough draft. It's supposed to be garbage inherently. Right. But I'm it's the first page. So I have to come out the gate running and be amazing. So I'll type a line and delete it 50 times before I'm finally hi, it's going to suck. It's fine. Just move past it. Yeah. And once you get through that initial push of allowing yourself to be crap, you're oh, the words are flowing just fine. Mm-hmm. So, but yeah. So I'm
you know what you should do? Just start with chapter 2.
That's not a bad idea. Come back
if that would break some sort of mental block.
It probably would.
The beginning.
Yeah, it probably would. If I just act like I've already got that one in the can and we're in the thick of it now, no problem. Maybe I can trick my brain into being oh, this is easy instead of being you have to be perfect or why are you even here? You know what I mean?
Yeah, skip that whole nonsense.
Yeah. I'm going to do that with maybe the next short story. I'll just start later in the story and be this has already happened. And I'll just go back. Worth a shot.
And you end up going back and changing it all anyways.
I know. So I don't know why brains are weird.
I don't know. Has anybody ever tried that?
It's got to be a thing. Yeah, if it has, if you've done it, please let us know because if it works and you've figured out a way to trick your brain to not be a weird perfectionist, please tell me. Also,
if no one else has ever thought of this and I'm the first one to say it out loud, trademark.
Yes.
And I will be selling the method, Start Chapter 2 method, on our website in the coming months.
Perfect.
Start with Chapter 2. A philosophy brought to you by Kirt Graves.
Yes, I like it. TM. What about you? How's your week going so far?
My week is good. I ended up not quite finishing last week's project on Friday afternoon. So I had to wrap that up yesterday. Then I started prepping for this new series that I'm starting this week. And today was kind of spent waiting for responses to come to the questions I had.
Yeah.
And it's always hard to remember in those moments that it's the time you take now to get the answers you need will save you so much time later on.
Yeah.
But it feels like I'm twiddling my thumbs. I have tons of other stuff to work on. I did a ton of podcast stuff while I was waiting.
Nice.
I have shit to do.
Yeah.
So it wasn't I was just sitting there not doing anything. But it is, when you're waiting for information to come back, it's it's hard to remember that that's important. And that's also part of the job is collect, that's part of prep is collecting the information you need.
Yeah.
And if you don't have it, you have to wait for somebody else to respond. And it is easier to wait and have the information you need than it is to jump in uninformed and then find out on the back end, oh.
Yeah.
Here's something I wish I knew.
Yeah.
Especially when it's a series like this. It's a backlist series. It's already 6 books long. Characters have been established. Things are known about these people in books 4, 5, and 6. That it's important to ask the question.
Right.
Hey, author.
Yeah.
What should I know about those people?
Yeah.
Here in book 1 that I don't because I only have book 1 in front of me.
Right. Exactly.
So yeah, that was today was just a weird day, and then I have all 3 books in that series queued up to just the first 3 to knock out over the next couple weeks. So. Oh,
cool. Okay. So you can at least hit the ground running tomorrow now that you have all that. Nice.
Yes.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm the same way when it comes to waiting, because if that's the project that my mind is ready for, then like that's all I want to do is this thing.
Mm-hmm.
So if I have to pivot to something else, it always throws me off really bad. I'm like, you could like go do laundry instead. I'm like, no, I wanted to vacuum. Like this is what I have to do, that kind of stuff. So I get it.
Yeah. So, so last week we revealed or released our first batch of new Patreon benefits.
Mm-hmm.
How was that for you?
It was scary, like weirdly scary. So I actually misjudged what I was feeling that day and thought I was tired because I didn't have enough caffeine and I was like getting a headache. It was not lack of caffeine. It was anxiety. And I like dumped an entire cup of coffee on being like extremely anxious about like sharing my unedited first chapter of a new book to the Patreon. So I felt like shit like all day. Like it was self-imposed anxiety. Like it's fine. People do this all the time. It's it's just, again, brains are stupid. So like I appreciated that people went on there and liked it and are being cool about what we're doing and stuff. But yeah, dude, I was like, it's very out of my comfort zone because I really don't like sharing snippets and stuff like this because I'm always worried that, I don't know, because it's unedited, people are going to be like, ugh, you know what I mean? But I'm like, everyone's stuff is unedited. It's fine. And like I noted, it's, not the final draft new to do. Like nobody gives a shit, but I do, like deeply in my core. So this is pushing out of my comfort zone, but also kind of cool because I don't ever get to like show this part of the writing process where it's just this raw, like, Jess signed off on it, so I know it's not crap, but like I know that there's some cleanup that needs to happen. So, but yeah, it's fun and also terrifying.
Yeah. Well, a lot of things are both.
Yeah.
So, and it's just a reminder that like our Patreon is an author's Patreon, a narrator's Patreon, and a podcast Patreon.
Yeah.
So it's a great deal for all the things we're doing over there.
Yeah.
If you have not signed up, now's a great time to do it.
Yeah.
We'll revisit that in the future.
Yes.
So, this week I thought we'd really piss some people off.
Love it.
And talk about tropes.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
Let's just make some enemies.
Let's have some opinions.
Yes.
So maybe to start with, not that I think anybody's listening to our podcast who doesn't know what tropes are, but just in case, what are tropes?
Tropes are the story beats that are very common within specific genres. For romance, you've got tropes that kind of center around the main love interest or the romance plot of the story. So very common ones are like enemies to lovers, best friends to lovers, secret billionaire, marriage of convenience, like that kind of stuff. So it's very established. Like if you are having this type of story, you're following the trope beats of XYZ kind of thing. So that's like a ad hoc, my definition of it. So,
which is a little different than genre.
Right. It's different than genre.
You can have a genre and they can follow really any of those trope story beats.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So why are they unavoidable? And why do they sometimes get a bad rap?
Man, that's a tough question. I think they're unavoidable because stories inherently have been told before. Like you're never going to get a new story. So inevitably you're going to fall into a trope, even if you think you're doing something revolutionary and different and nobody's ever done it before. At least
you can do both.
Yeah, you can.
You can be revolutionary and doing something different that nobody's ever done before. But the broad strokes are still going to be somebody's trope.
Exactly. So, exactly. Right? You can and that's what makes tropes so fun is that it can be a secret marriage, but then you're putting a new spin on it. Like if you understand the trope, like you're like, it has to be a secret marriage, or like, let's do fake dating because I'm more familiar with that one where it's like they have to pretend to be a couple for whatever. Like you can do that whatever part and make it something totally different. But at its core, they have to pretend to be a couple when they're not. You know what I mean? Like that's just going to happen because there's millions of stories out there. So the flavoring is going to be there even if you're putting cinnamon in it for some reason, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So. Well, and as somebody who wants to sell a story, it's important that you also identify what your tropes are.
Right.
Because there are people out there who look, if you're in any of the Facebook groups about really any literature thing, but specifically a lot of romance. If you're in any of the romance groups, you will see people posting specifically, I'm looking for grumpy sunshine. Yeah. That's what I'm in the mood for. That's my favorite trope.
Yeah.
And so if you have that identified and you market it as such, that's how you find an audience.
Yeah, it's a big one. And especially romance, like we're a lot of people are mood readers when it comes to romance. That's just typically what we're like. Sometimes I'm really in the mood for like a good squishy, fluffy best friends to lovers, like low angst, like fun little read, but sometimes I'm like, no, I want like all the drama and make it like a love triangle or something. It just kind of depends on what you're vibing with, because people are always different.
Right. And I think they do get a bad rap because it's easy to think they are synonymous with like copying somebody else's story or being unoriginal or being lazy.
Yes.
And it's and you know, I have learned through time and working with so many different authors and reading so many different books that it's like, it is what you said. You're going to fall into a trope one way or another. And if you don't, it probably means you didn't write a story with all the beats that are necessary to tell a complete beginning, middle, and end.
Yeah.
So it's probably just not a very successful story.
I think
you have to fall somehow into one of those established storytelling structures.
Yeah. Like you can play with the structure, you can play with the beats, but the beats have to be there. Otherwise it's not a good story. You're missing a chunk of it. So
you're gonna lose readers.
Yeah.
Who to a certain degree learn to expect what the beats of a story are. And it's not just reading and writing either. I mean, they exist in movies, they exist in television.
Oh yeah.
I mean, how many times have you watched a television show and 15 minutes in you're like, I know where this is going.
Oh, for sure.
You know, because they're using contrivances that like other TV shows that you've watched have used. And you're like, oh, all right. I see. It doesn't take away the enjoyment of it.
Oh, it could still be great, even if you're like...
Yeah, you don't think the writers of that TV show were lazy or unoriginal. It's just like they're using these story beats for their characters in the world that they've created. And sometimes when they go off and do a different thing, you're pissed off about it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, because
it stops being enjoyable.
Right.
Or it gets boring.
Yeah, that's a big one. Because like, especially within like romance arcs like that, like if you're expecting everything's going great, there's that like apprehension of like, oh, everything's about to go to shit, because that's the story has to go that way. It can't just be sunshine the whole time. Otherwise it's not fun. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's kind of the same with tropes, where it's like, if it's a fake dating thing, I'm going to expect them to catch some feelings. That's the point. Right. You know what I mean? Like, so like if they somehow step around that and all of a sudden they're getting married and you never establish the fact that they fell in love or something, and you're like, well, this is shit. This is a bad story.
Yeah.
So but I agree.
So let's talk specifics.
Okay.
What are some tropes that you really love?
I will never get sick of enemies to lovers. Not going to happen.
Okay.
I love that trope so much because there is something just primal in me that like every time I see people who fucking hate each other, I want them to kiss so bad. Like I have something broken in my brain. I have no idea. But like every time we watch anything with any type of like animosity, I'm like, they're going to fall in love. And Alex is like, we are watching John Wick. You know, you're just like, stop.
No, one of those two people will be dead in 30 seconds.
Exactly. I'm like, I don't know. In my hand cannon.
But what if they kiss?
Yeah, but what if it's just a little kiss?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's my top gold star. Like if somebody's like, it's enemies to lovers, I'm always like, I'm listening. Like you can say anything after that, I'm probably still invested.
Interesting. Yeah. Interesting.
What about you? Do you have like a gold star one that like you never get sick of?
There are several. I really like forced proximity.
That's a good one.
I really like... So my thing, I even made a t-shirt about it when we went to that AloraCon a couple years ago.
Oh, yeah.
I struggle with enemies to lovers because when I when I don't like someone, I hold a grudge.
Yeah.
So I can't imagine getting past that to then becoming physically attracted to and also falling in love with that person.
Right,
Doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah.
But if you start as friends and have a falling out, and then find your way back to friendship and then to lovers.
Okay.
So like friends to enemies to lovers
is
like sort of like the thing that I like. Because it's like, you had an established relationship, something tore you apart.
Yeah.
And then you find your way back to each other.
Yeah.
That to me registers in a way that enemies to lovers doesn't. But yeah, I do forced proximity, like just put two people together.
Yeah.
Regardless of whether they're friends, enemies, whatever.
Yeah. Strangers.
Make them have to stay in the same place at the same time until somebody takes their pants off.
Yeah, that's a good one. I love writing that one because I do a lot of road trips. So like anytime people have to be in a car for long periods of time, they're probably going to fall in love if it's one of my books.
Well, it's just such a natural way to like get to know people.
Yeah, because I mean, what else are you going to do? Just sit there in silence? Somebody's going to get bored.
Right.
So.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, that's another one that I really enjoy. Do you have any others?
So I had to pull up a list. Like I'm that much of a hack that I'm like, I have like the 3 that I really like. And I'm like, well, I know there's other ones. Let me see. I like Forbidden Love, always gold star. If it's one of those like different stations kind of thing, like a knight falling in love with a king or something. Oh, shit. I'm all about that. Easy. Love it. Second Chance. That one can be done good and bad. That one, I think sometimes people are like, they make the break so hard, like the sever of the relationship too much for me to be able to be like, no, I wouldn't come back from that. Like, fuck that person forever. But I've read them to be great, where it's like it's been a full heartbreak, but they still find themselves, find their way back to each other. And I'm like, oh, I love it. But it has to be done well. Otherwise, can't do it. Sucks.
Yeah. I also, I like Grumpy Sunshine, but I also like Grumpy, which I know is not really a trope, but like...
I love Grumpy. Yeah.
Two people, neither one of them is looking for love, and they're just in a bad mood.
Yeah.
Boy, can I relate to that. And,
it just speaks
and
to you.
And against all odds, like they actually become attracted to one another because the other person is also grumpy.
Yeah.
It's like,
I want more grumpy romance. I love Grumpy. Oh man. Okay. We're going to,
not evil, not mean.
No.
Not mean spirited. Just like,
they've been through some shit.
Right.
Yeah.
Just kind of jaded.
Yeah. There you go. Jaded.
Yeah. Jaded.
Yeah. Cause I don't like evil. Like if I can put up with evil for sure. Like if done well and they're not like truly black soul evil, then I'm usually like, comic book villain evil. I'm like, that's fine. But yeah, if they're just tired and grumpy and they just don't want to put up with anyone else's shit, but they fall in love with somebody that level of like, I'm done with everyone. I love that.
That is good.
Yeah.
I have a love-hate relationship. So this straddles the line. We'll start moving towards hate.
Okay.
I have a love-hate relationship with slow burns.
Okay. That's fair.
Because I have done some that are done really well.
Yes.
Really, really well. The Nicole Knight series comes to mind. But part of, I think, why that worked is it was like a polyamorous situation.
Yeah.
So like there was romance advancing at all times and like at different levels. So you got some satisfaction along the way.
Right.
I also know that just like sometimes people meet and they bang.
Yeah. I mean, that happens.
That's how they meet and that's how they get together. And then the emotional stuff happens after that. So that's also a perfectly valid way to write a love story.
Oh, for sure.
And depending on the book, sometimes you need that. Be like, oh, thank God they finally got together.
Yeah, exactly.
So. Yeah,
I'm the same way. It can, I like it if it has that mounting like tension and like it's just really, that pining is just really drawn out. I love that. But like the payoff has to be fantastic. Otherwise I'm going to be mad. Yeah. But like the, what series am I thinking of? The Captive Prince series was that was like the best slow burn I've ever read because I don't even think they kiss until book 3. You know what I mean? Yeah. So by the time they were like, they do a little peck, I'm like throwing the book, screaming happy because I'm like, fucking finally, because they've been through so much shit up until that point. But yeah, otherwise, I've definitely read those slow burns where I'm like, if they don't at least hold hands soon, I'm going to go to sleep. You know what I mean? Like, I need something. Yeah. So, yeah. I think we're aligned on slow burn.
Are there any others that challenge you?
I think age gap, I can be challenged by that one. I haven't read one that I don't like, but every once in a while, I'm like, I don't know, man. Like, it's not one I seek out. So when it falls into my lap, I'm usually like, I'll give it a shot. But
sure.
It's not one that I chase down. But that one, I think I probably should read more of them. But like, I don't know. That one always sits goofy.
That one's very situational.
Yeah.
Because I have done some, and again, everybody's different.
Right.
But like when it's the dad's best friend falling in love with the son, or I guess daughter, if we're being inclusive.
We're not doing that. Because I have a double standard when it comes to that shit. I am full.
You're in neg on age gap when it's male female.
Yep. Yeah. Nope. I will hard fuck that. If it's like older dude, younger woman, gross. I'm taking her away from you. You're nasty. But like,
doesn't that say something?
That's me.
Right?
Double standard. Because if it's a gay romance, I'm like, I'll at least read the blurb. You know what I mean? But I think it's the same with me. Like if it's a dad's best friend and his son or something.
If this person has had an established relationship with a child, who like for me, it's just so hard to see somebody that you knew as a child and think, oh, now they're hot.
Yeah, I don't know.
Unless you were also a child and you grew up alongside them. That's a different thing.
Totally different.
But like, I can't imagine a world in which I ever look at any of my friends' kids and think, oh, now that they're 18, I can talk about how hot they are. Like,
nope.
I don't need to go there.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense to me. There's always a part of me that will think of them as the child that I knew.
Yeah. I think that's where my brain is, where I'm
I can't get past that.
Yeah.
If that's the situation.
Right.
Many other situations exist where like that long-term relationship didn't happen. They just happen to be different ages. Perhaps the young person's very mature. Perhaps the older person's not as mature.
Right.
You know, they actually meet at a good place where they are in their lives, depending on,
I think
there's lots of ways to be compatible when you're not the same age as somebody.
Yeah.
It's that growing up part that I'm like, I struggle when it's best friend kid.
Yeah. I think I'm right there with you. Because if it's two adults.
And it's clear that they knew them as kids. Like, because sometimes it's like, oh, it's my dad's best friend, but
I never met this person.
Right. Yeah. Like they're work friends, or I never met him, or like they became best friends after I went to college or something, like there's lots of ways around it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whenever there's that whiff of like, here's a person who used to like see me in a kiddie pool and now I want to touch our naughties. It's like,
God, everything about that sentence makes me just
right.
No,
right.
Can't do it.
But it is for some people.
Yeah.
It is for them.
I'm not trying to like yuck on somebody else's yum. That's fine if that's your jam. Those things exist. Great.
Right.
I am super not into it.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'll even allow for the possibility that there is somebody out there who could do it very well and they might change my mind.
Sure.
But yeah.
You'd have to be pretty damn charming.
Pretty darn charming for me to get past my personal feelings about that sort of situation. Another thing that I simply will not fuck with. I don't like bully romances.
Dude, okay, let's real talk. Sorry. Those are very problematic to me. I was bullied. I can't imagine like being fucking punched in the face and then being like, but he's a nice guy.
Right.
No, that's not cool. That's not okay. And I just want to hug people who have to go through that shit or who like project and like that's their way of like coming to terms with things. And I understand that, but you can do better. There are nice people out there who don't have to shove you into a locker to show how much they love you or whatever.
Right.
Not into it.
Yeah. Again, maybe it's just because I haven't seen it done well, but like I just have gotten such an icky feeling.
Yeah.
For me, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Also anything with like dubious consent or non-consent, like I just don't think there's a world where you can go from sexual assault to falling in love.
Yeah.
I think that is fantasy at its purest form. And it is a fantasy that some people enjoy.
Yeah, it's for people, and that's awesome.
Not yucking anybody's yum as long as you don't do it in real life.
Yeah, that's the big one. You can like write and consume all of this stuff, and I will never judge you for it. Like if you're like, no, I love bully non-con romance, I'd be like, rock on, dude. Like you enjoy it, and I will champion your right to have it.
Right.
But as soon as it branches out of that, that's when we have a problem. But like, I think it's important to distinguish that, because a lot of authors will get called out about that shit. They'll write some like dark romances, and then people will be like, "What's wrong with you?" And they're like, "I mean, I'm just a person. This is not real. I don't condone any of this shit. It's fantasy. It's fiction. It's not real."
Right.
So, but yeah, no, I'm the same. I don't like the super pitch dark black tropes.
Yeah. Yeah. So those are some tropes we love and hate. What are some tropes that you love and hate?
Yeah.
We will have a respectful conversation about it on all our social media channels and also in Patreon.
Yes.
So remember to keep it respectful. Just because you don't like something doesn't mean it's necessarily bad. That is always the frame in which we are talking about these things. These are things I don't like or things I like. These are things you don't like or things you like.
Yes.
They are not good or bad. It's just what we can connect to.
Yep.
So what are the tropes that you connect with most? And what are the ones that challenge you the most?
Yeah.
We want to hear from you. This week, we are not talking to an author of bully romance.
No.
In fact, quite the opposite.
Yes.
Quite the opposite.
Very, very different.
This week, we're talking to author Tess Carletta. Tess Carletta is the author of Kirt Maz, a cozy fantasy romance that came out in August and was her debut. So this is a baby author.
I know.
We're getting somebody brand new.
She's wonderful.
We actually talk about how much of a baby she is compared to us in the interview. Sorry, Tess, for yelling at you for being young. Tess is a library assistant by day and an indie writer every other waking moment. She holds a particular love for sunsets, quiet country walks, and stories about folks who love each other. Can you believe I yelled at this person?
She's so nice.
She's
and we
so
were just
sweet.
like, how dare you be younger than us?
She lives in Pennsylvania with 2 roommates and a round cat, aptly named Ruby the Ham Princess. A note for our audience who watches the podcast on YouTube. We had some technical difficulties during Tess's interview, and so there may be some times when the audio and the video don't line up precisely. I did the best I could. It locks in eventually, but just be aware that might be a thing.
That's fair.
For a little bit.
Yeah.
But this is our conversation with Tess Carletta. Welcome to the Hoof and Fang podcast. Tess Carletta, hello.
Hi. I'm really excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
We're really excited to chat with you. Thanks so much for reaching out. You did your author marketing thing. And you were like, hi, I have stuff to talk to you about.
Yeah.
And we're like, awesome. We love talking.
That's gold star.
I had a peanut gallery of people in my little Discord chat being like, you should reach out to this podcast. They're really great people.
Aww.
That's awesome. That
End
makes
of
my
interview.
heart-
It can't get better.
Yeah, right. We've peaked. That just made my day.
So we would love to just get to know more about you, your background, as we've been saying, like, what's your author origin story?
Well, it's a little bit twofold because I initially wrote my debut book, Kirt Maz, as a writing exercise to try to figure out how the heck writing even works. I felt like I had figured that out already through writing a lot of fan fiction and a lot of short stories, but I had never actually finished anything of my own. So I wrote Kirt Maz as a way to like get my little writer legs underneath me. And then I had no idea how to edit it at all because I had never finished anything before. So I submitted it to a revision retreat that was being hosted by my favorite author. And it did not get accepted, which was devastating for me. And I took a break from it. And in that break, I received a really encouraging pep talk from someone who didn't know me all that well. And he just poured a lot of love and like honesty into the pep talk and said, take some time, figure it out, and then you'll be fine. And then eventually during that break, I sat down and read a ton of indie stories. I read Sebastian Rothwell's Oak King, Holly King. I read S.O. Callahan's Fella Enchanted series. And I was like, oh my gosh, these are high quality books. Like I could do this. So I was sitting at my office one day and I was like, I'm going to publish a book. And I set a date in my calendar. I said, the book's going to be published by this date. And then it was. So it worked out.
That's really cool. We've talked about this before. That it's very rare, I think, in the writing world for people to publish the first thing that they ever worked on, like being like, this is the story, I'm going to publish this one. Because a lot of us, me included, the first book I ever wrote, like sat down and like, okay, I want to learn how to do this. I want to write a book. It's garbage. It's like, it's such a dumpster fire. It'll never see the light of day. And it's just going to be forever like a dirty secret I never show anyone. So the fact that you were like, I'm going to learn how to do this. And then you did it is amazing.
I should say that I wrote Kit Maz like as practice, because there's another book that I had written 7 drafts of since 2017. And
that we just don't talk about.
We don't look at her. We don't acknowledge her. She's not very good. So I was like, I'm going to work with a world that I understand really well, characters that are familiar to me. So I literally set Kit Maz in small town Pennsylvania, because I live in small town Pennsylvania. And I included a bunch of people who remind me of my neighbors. And the landscape is of like the main house that the book takes place in is quite literally my backyard.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, especially like if you need to like take a moment to really like flush out like a scene and like talk about the environment and the sights and the sounds and the smells, like,
yeah, that would be cool
to just be able to be like, okay, I know this so well.
Yeah.
Or I'm just going to walk outside.
So the way that it worked out actually was that I had COVID and I was quarantining on my back porch. And I was sitting in a little chair looking out, and I was like, what does this cottage's yard look like? And I'm like looking at my willow tree being like, there is a willow tree. Yeah. And I'm looking at my shed and being like, there's also a shed. Because I was a little too sick to be any more creative than that. But then it ended up working out pretty well.
I think there's a lesson to learn there.
Oh, for sure.
About like overthinking and like I mean, in my case, it's overacting. Like we're always being told to like bring it back down to earth. Like, I think you can overwrite.
Oh God, yeah.
Like sometimes it's like, no, this is a world. Like just write the world, and like keep it simple, keep it basic.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
So yeah, I like that. I think there's definitely a lesson to take away from that situation.
For sure.
Can you say a little bit, I mean, you don't have to go into specifics, but I am just curious about this person who like came to you and gave you advice and encouragement. Like, what was it you were struggling with, and like, how did they help you through it?
Well, part of the reason why not making it into the revision retreat was so devastating was because at the time I felt like it was a really, really good match. I don't mind saying it was Maggie Stiefvater who wrote The Raven Cycle, and I just really love her writing. Every time I feel like creatively stunted in any way, I turn back on that audiobook that's narrated by Will Patton, and it's just excellent. But
we don't praise other narrators here.
Pardon me. There's only one true narrator in this world.
Oh my God, can you imagine if I was that big of a dick?
Actually, Will Patton is dead to me. I'm never going to listen to the Raven Cycle
ever again.
We don't know him.
I've never heard of him before.
You can make so many enemies, Kirt.
No, I'm not. I can cut this if I want to. Sorry, continue. So, Will Patton is a wonderful narrator, and that's a good series.
Yes, and the retreat was taking place about 2 hours outside of where Kit Maz takes place. And the actual like cabin itself was where one of my characters is from, and it was she's a magical realism writer, so Kit Maz's magical realism, it was like all these little connections, and I was like, oh my gosh, we're a match made in heaven. This is basically book matrimony. And when I submitted it obviously I didn't get accepted, which was totally fine in retrospect. But the person who gave me a pep talk was a friend of a friend, and we were sitting at the lunch table, and everyone was like, did you get into the retreat? And I was like, no, I didn't. And he was like, okay, girl, listen, you got this. If you want this book to exist, you got to sit your butt down. You got to do the edits yourself. You got to figure it out. You're a college-educated girl. And I was like, you're right. I am college-educated. I am a strong, like, I can do this. And it just was nice, I think, to hear that type of encouragement from someone who didn't know me very well, who, like, when you accept compliments from your friends, they're obviously going to say nice things to you because they love you. But someone who's a stranger has no obligation to pat you on the back and be like, you're the best author in the entire world.
Okay, I don't know that I have the right kind of friends if they're supposed to be doing that.
You don't have... Apparently, I need to step up every once in a while and be like, "Hey, you're doing a good job, Kirt."
Not my friends.
Kirt, you're the best.
There's nobody I trust more than my friends to tell me the truth. That's really awesome, though. That like, and it just seems like it was the right person in the right place at the right time to give you the push that you really needed. Like you needed that more than you needed the retreat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
I love that. Can you tell us a little bit more about the world you created and specifically the characters and what the story is about?
Yeah, so Kitten Basie tells the story of an immortal guy who lives in small town Pennsylvania and has for his 77-year life. And his mom passes away unexpectedly, so he is really lost, doesn't know what to do. He sells his house to this newcomer in town. And the newcomer is, of course, very handsome, very nice. And every time Basie tries to leave Long Lily, the gentleman who moved into his house gives him a reason to stay. And they end up falling in love.
I love that. I also love that, like, I love the trope of, like, an immortal falling in love with a mortal. Like, that's timeless to me. That's just, because it builds
timeless.
I'm accidentally clever. But it builds in so much drama. Like, there's this unspoken, like, stakes that are happening at all times. Like, of course, this person, I assume, is probably going to be like, oh my God, I can't, like, fall for this mortal guy. Like, what is 100 years going to look like, kind of thing. So, yeah, I adore that. Was there a certain aspect, like, what drew you to wanting to do that kind of trope in your story?
Well, I had just, again, read The Raven Cycle for like the 13th millionth time. And I knew that I wanted to work with magical realism. And the thing about magical realism is it has to, like, the magic has to take the background where the realism is the more important part. And I was struggling with finding a type of magic that felt like it wasn't going to take the lead. And immortality was the first thing that I was kind of like, I can just have an immortal guy and have him be really super normal. But also, he's 77 years old. But he also just lives next door, and he's our electrician. And he seems like he's 25 and completely like any other guy in this town.
It also ties into something we've talked about on the podcast before too, which is that I really appreciate books where there is some sort of external obstacle to being together. And so even like in that situation, it's a very low angst way of still being able to say, like, no, there's a really big thing you have to consider before you jump into a relationship with this person.
Yeah.
Like there really is going to be some issues, you know, but without making it like the world is about to fall apart, that sort of obstacle. It's just, it's like, it's very grounded, it's very human, but there is something external. Yeah. It's not just your own, I don't think he likes me.
Yeah,
you know?
right.
I can only do, I don't think he likes me for so many chapters before I'm like, there needs to be some other reason.
Yeah.
Other than poor self-esteem.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I think with Basie's story, a lot of it is him thinking that he's supposed to be the right kind of immortal because his mom was immortal. And he was like, well, this whole living in the same space, doing the same thing every day thing didn't work for her. And he's like, I'm going to get up and I'm going to travel and I'm going to do what immortal people are supposed to do. And I think the book is him figuring out that that's probably not the way that he personally needs to do his immortality.
Yeah.
Yeah, like why break the cycle at this point? Like, especially if he's been like living in the same place for 77 years, it's hard to just stop living that life and like shake it up and do something different.
You just gotta figure out what's best for you and not listen to what a lot of people tell you should be doing, which I think is something that people have been trying to do with my generation, because I'm 26. And so I'm in the generation that's like, you need to get married. You need to get a house. You need to do all these things. And it's kind of crazy right now to try to do any of those things.
Oh, big time. Yeah, I think we can relate to that because we're older with an unspecified number. And and like
no, I'm sorry, I can't even pretend anymore. I'm almost 40. I can't relate to a 26-year-old. That's not happening.
Well, but I remember also being 26 and like
I don't. It's too long ago.
Well, like, especially just like from, being a woman, like being told to have babies like immediately and shit. Like, I think that's almost like evergreen. Like, nobody can escape that at this point. But like, now that I'm almost 40, people stop asking me that question. So they eventually stop. But yeah, I get it.
And even just the expectation of like buying a house.
Yeah.
Or, I mean, even like, not everybody can afford to go get a 4-year degree. Like the assumption that people are going to do that even is like, no, they can't. Yeah. The younger generation definitely cannot do all the same things that the previous generation did.
Yeah.
Even if they wanted to. And the thing is, they don't want to.
No, they don't.
Yeah.
Well, and I think we should and we're getting so off topic, but I think a lot of these expectations just need to die and be buried. Like college isn't for everyone. Not everyone wants a house, and we sure as hell can't afford it right now. So why is there still this weird, unrealistic expectation that everyone is supposed to follow the white picket fence, guidelines, where it's like, that's not even the norm for most people anymore.
Yeah.
So I don't know why we're pressuring 20 somethings to follow this track that we've proven doesn't work. I don't have a house. I'm almost 40. It's insane right now.
The moral of the story is, if I'm a 77-year-old immortal woman, that I should be staying in my small town for the rest of eternity.
Listen, I think if you're immortal, you do whatever the hell you want for as long as you want. Amen.
Yes.
Is he immortal in the way that he just will not die of natural causes and won't age? Or can he take bullets?
He cannot take bullets.
Okay.
Fortunately, in his little itty bitty happy small town, he doesn't have to take any bullets.
Okay. That's good. I mean, I could say car crash, something.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. This is a little bit of a spoiler, but I have a follow-up novella coming out in March. And he does teeter on the line of living and not living in that book.
Ooh, teasers.
I don't know.
I love that.
He becomes a firefighter, which is very dangerous.
Oh,
interesting.
Yeah, that's tempting fate.
Yeah, right? Goodness.
Yeah.
I mean, but if you're immortal, why not, right? I'd be like...
apparently you're not.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah.
Immortal doesn't mean impenetrable, apparently.
True. But I think at 77, I'd be like, heaven, I'm going to at least go try. I mean, I've never done it before. Why not?
Yeah.
So that's cool.
Yeah.
Either in this world that you've already created or in other worlds, are there other types of magic that you want to play with as an author?
Yeah, so I'm working on a manuscript right now that takes place in just a full fantasy setting. Now that I've figured out how to write an actual book, I'm now I can write other books. And so the one I'm working on, it's wow, I actually can do it. The one I'm working on right now, in the world, the sun makes people grow plants out of their skin. And there's two different kingdoms.
Listen, I have... That's what the sun does. The sun makes people grow plants. I was like, no. We need to have a science lesson. Out of their skin. Oh, okay.
That was the thinking when I was trying to figure out how the magic worked, because I was like, well, what is going to justify people growing plants out of their skin? And I was like, the sun, the thing that grows all things.
Yes.
So that's kind of fun, because there's one kingdom that tries to avoid that at all costs, so they live in complete darkness. And then there's another kingdom that they try to utilize that and incorporate that into their aesthetics and their daily lives and the way that they defend themselves and all those sorts of things.
That's fascinating.
I love that. That is so interesting.
And you know how they say there's no new ideas?
Mm-hmm.
I literally haven't heard of that anywhere else.
Yeah, I was about to say I've never heard of that. That's so cool.
It's kind of based off, not really, but a little bit based off of this old Tumblr-y fandom trope called Hanahaki. I'm pretty sure that's right. Where if you experience unrequited love, you start to cough up rose petals and flowers. And then eventually, if your love is super unrequited, you end up dying. And the only way to cure it is to, I guess, have your love you back. But it's so tropey, and it's a little fandom-y. I don't think it's an actual thing from Japanese culture. It's just something that the internet invented or 20 years ago.
God bless the internet.
Yeah. Sometimes there's little gems in there. That's fantastic.
Yeah, that is a really cool idea.
Yeah, I like that.
I do too.
You're going to have to let us know when that drops because I'm going to have to read that. That sounds too cool to pass up.
I'm going to try to write it up to your expectations then.
Like we have high expectations.
Yeah. Is it romance? Do they have flowers growing out of their skin? Pre-ordered. Like that sounds dope. Bonus if there's
some sort of external conflict.
Yeah. Well, I would imagine so if there's two like rival kingdoms, basically. That's so cool.
I got the idea because I was like, I'm going to write exactly what I would like to read at this moment. Like all my favorite little things jam-packed into a singular book. I was like, forbidden romance, check. Flowers, check. Kissing, check.
Yeah.
That's a good checklist. Is that the one where, like, because we asked you for some information. Is it the two guards? Is it a different story?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Because I was going to ask you about that because I was like, two guards, like, falling in love. What is that about? Now I'm even more like, oh, hell yeah. That just sounds cool.
I've gotten... I'm working with an artist named Jan, who goes by Thistle Arts on a bunch of social media platforms. And he did the cover for Oak King, Holly King. He did the cover for Rita Rubin's most recent work, which has a title that I always mess up. But the covers are gorgeous. They're absolutely stunning. And he just sent me the artwork that goes with the flower guard story. And seeing the main characters and like all the splendor of their armor, I was like, I could not have imagined. I could not have dreamt this up myself. So that's been kind of cool to work with someone who knows what they're doing artistically and then be able to incorporate that into the book.
Yeah, that's cool. I'm not going to ask you to show it here because it's spoiler, but I might have to bug you to see that later because that just sounds cool.
Yeah, I'll email it to you.
Excellent.
Ooh, behind the scenes.
Yes, and I will share it to no one. It is privileged information.
Yes.
I've been showing, like, all my friends, I'm like, have you seen this artwork of my main characters? You haven't because it's only mine. Now you have.
How could they possibly? Oh, that's awesome. That is cool. Like, what other influences have you had? You've mentioned a couple of authors that you really like their work, but like, is there anything else that influences you? Clearly, like Tumblr. Like, are you just one of those people who like absorbs ideas?
A little bit. So Kirt Maz is very much a cottagecore story, and it's the direct result of me reading the Raven Cycle, but also reading Anne of Green Gables. And not only reading it, but having like a weird autistic hyperfixation on it for 4 years. Where all I did was watch Anne with an E on Netflix and read fanfiction and read the novel series by the original author and all the remakes. And I loved living in that world. And it was the first time that I'd ever engaged with literature that made me want to develop a unique narrative style. Because before I was just sort of writing like, you look at the sky. The sky is blue. Like, you just sort of just laundry list things out, and you don't really have fun with the language and the words themselves. And reading Anne of Green Gables, even though it's a classic children's novel that's a little bit like, oh my gosh, why is she reading Anne of Green Gables of all the books? But it was the first time I was like, oh my gosh, I can take this dictionary of words in front of me and create this really exquisite piece of art. So that's been kind of a big influence of just like giving me a little shove to have fun with my writing.
That is cool.
Yeah.
I'm testing my literary knowledge here. Anne of Green Gables, that's the one that takes place on Prince Edward Island? Yes?
It surely is. Yep.
Okay. I thought so. My best friend, Stephanie, from high school, I just officiated her wedding in October.
Nice.
She wrote her master's thesis on something called literary tourism, where people like will read a book like Anne of Green Gables and then make a point of like going to see the place where it was, like where it was set.
That sounds interesting.
Yeah.
It's really big in PEI. Like, you go and you can see the house, you can go and watch the plays, there are people dressed up like the characters. Like, it's all Anne of Green Gables. there.
That's really cool. Do you think you'll make the trek someday?
I recently learned that there is a literal bridge that connects the island to the rest of Canada. So I don't travel very well, but one day I have a feeling I'm going to end up making it there because of the presence of that bridge.
Do it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes.
That's got to be
Well,
like
now
a
I
bucket
gotta.
list thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I have only done, I'm trying to think if I've really ever done true literary tourism. I made a point of going to the church where Madeleine L'Engle is interned in New York City when I visited.
Oh, rock on.
Just because like that was special to me, because she was so special to me as a young person. But yeah, I think there's something to that literary tourism.
Yeah, I went and walked around the graveyards of New Orleans trying to find Lestat's tomb.
There you go.
So,
Did you find it?
No, it's very well hidden, or / doesn't exist.
I was like, wait, I'm literally sitting here like, wait, that's real?
No.
I
need to go. So when Jess went to New Orleans, she went and saw Anne Rice's tomb, and it's beautiful. She brought me back a rock because she's a good friend. So she's like, I got this from the cemetery. And I was like, I love you.
Was Jeff supposed to take that rock?
I mean, it's a public cemetery. It's
Okay.
fine.
All right.
Or Anne Rice is going to haunt me, which is fine.
That's okay too.
Yeah.
Write that
Both
book.
great things.
Ooh, you're haunted by
A horror
famous
novel.
fantasy horror novelist.
Yeah.
Ooh.
She
Okay,
might
we're
too.
coming up with new ideas.
Yeah, I'm going to jot that down.
Is there anything else our listeners should know about you or your upcoming work?
The novella that comes after Kirt Maz is going to be on the shelves with extra bonus stories, including one by a guest author in March, hopefully if all goes well. And I guess just if you want to have guards in love and flowers out of your skin and all that extra good jazz, then you can follow me on Instagram. I'm just under Tess Carletta. That's it.
Awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us. We really appreciate it. And we hope you'll come back.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much to Tess for reaching out to us and for dealing with so many technical issues during her recording. Just a reminder that her debut novel, Kirt Maz, is available now. Came out in August.
Love.
Brand new baby author. So there's not a lot of backlist to catch up on.
Yeah.
Before the companion novella set in the same world comes out next month in March. That's due in
Excellent.
March. That's called Patchwork, so look out for that.
Awesome.
And make sure to follow Tess on social media. All of her links are in the show notes. You should also be following Hoof and Fang in all the places.
Yes.
We're on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. But of course, the best place to follow us is as a member of our Patreon. You can follow us for free, or you can sign up at the $5 or $10 levels. We've got some exciting plans for the end of this month, and we're going to be announcing those things to our members first.
Yes.
So if you haven't already, at least go sign up and get that free membership so you know what's coming down the pike in February. Besides that, we'll be back next week, and we'll talk to you then.
Yeah. See you then.
We'll be talking to author R.K. Ashwick.
Yeah. That was an awesome interview.
Yeah. Bye-bye.